Nigeria plans to cut the cash in circulation in a bid to rein in inflation. Let's bring in a RISE analyst and director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, Dr. Sam Amadi, for more. Dr. Amadi, thank you for coming to Newsnight.
Thank you.
So then every month the state governors get an allocation from the federal government, and then it keeps increasing and we don't see the impact. And we're wondering how much does go to the local government. When you get to the local government secretariats these days, it looks like nothing is happening. What's going on? What about local government autonomy? Is it just a lip service?
Yeah, it is by very creeping authoritarianism in the local area, in the subnational government. The constitution is very clear that the local government should be an autonomous tier of government, even though typical federalism will be between state and either district or state and federal, okay? Between federal and state, federal and district. So we have what look like three-tier federalism, which is where the constitutional incoherence starts from, okay? Right. So usually the US definition federal and state, that's federalism. Switzerland, federal cantonment or cantons, but also it's federal, state, local. Now, the constitution also says you have to have a democratic government at the local level. And so what that means is that, arguably, if any local state have local government not elected democratically, then they are no longer local government for the purpose of the constitution. So the first fiscal control would be for the federal government to insist that we're not going to give allocation to local governments where they're not democratically elected. So if we had real democracy, and Nigerian leaders are concerned about democracy, a president of Nigeria would insist that governors cannot scramble the democratic structure of local government and still receive allocation predicated on the constitution. This is not discretionary transfer. This is statutory transfers, constitutional transfer. So that's the first. You have to fix back the fact that local government should be, even though it's somewhat subordinated to the state, but should have a democratic character, elected by the people. And the constitution also provides for clear mandate what they should be doing. And most of the things that constitute part of multi-dimensional poverty actually what the constitution has allocated to local governments, knowing that they're going to match them with the physical, the money, to drive those projects. So part of Nigeria's failure, economic development actually, and rural poverty we'll see, is that the local government doesn't exist for any functional sense, that they are really rendering services. In the past, even under colonial rule and immediately after post-colonial rule, in the 1960s to 67, we had with the regional governments, local county councils had schools, had hospitals, had roads. We are collecting rates and using those rates to develop. So the tax, the guys just left, talked about the tax habit. Our tax problem is not just about structure and design, it's about tax habit. That tax habit flows from the local government, where local rates are licensed, vehicles, all those things are done, and people can account for them because they are democratically elected. The second point we are suffering now is that under Obasanjo's time, Okonjo-Iweala tried innovation to say, if we transfer to you, we follow the money. So they created a fiscal law that says, look, we will, even though we pay to the joint account of states, that's what the constitution says, pay to the joint account, but the federal government inserts itself in that process to see through how it's being used. Supreme Court knocked it down and said, look, that contravenes constitutional democracy. Again, we have not aligned our constitutional development with economics. We have what seems like a national economy. So this is a consolidated revenue. Most of the states are not really contributing much. So they receive from the federal government. So if you have a one national economy, then you can't have 36 distinct, uncontrolled economies. So because you are transferring money that you don't have devices to ensure they are properly used as a state. Now, it's good to talk about citizens holding accountable, but we're a state where there's so much disempowerment. Democracy deficit is huge. Citizens' vote don't count. So which citizens are going to hold a state government accountable where House of Assemblies across the country have become worse than rubber stamp? So we're in a crisis where even if the federal government conceives of prudent management of the economy, consists of tools, strategies to grow the economy. They are constrained because they can't even guarantee that the funds they are transferring, there's a windfall now arising from two sources, arising from the fact that we subsidy removal, fees back, and of course the difference in terms of forex. States are happy, but then are we going to see uptick in development, even in paying salaries, even in dealing with statutory transfers to citizens and pensioners, and we may not see that. So that's really the crisis we are right now.
Talking about seeing uptick in development, given the varying economic challenges, different capacities of different states, how important is it that no region is left behind when it comes to allocating these revenues equitably and also the way that it's used?
I think the Constitution has tried to create some kind of equitable. For example, you see that states share based on population, based on landmass, and based on contribution to some level of contribution. Again, the oil-producing countries, states have their 13% and all that. So that equity is that everybody comes to Abuja with a bowl. Now, it seems to me that the fiscal regime does not compensate much about innovation and effort. So people have argued around, for example, VAT coming from alcohol, from another people are receiving the benefits when they are not ready to dirty their hands. So that's okay, fine. Maybe you should take those out. But for national unity, we say, well, let's not discriminate. But the big thing here is, even if we continue to have this national economy where we share this, we should probably give more to contributions. It's just like a contribution pension. You contribute more, you get more. So we must have a way that states know that the more they develop their own resources and contribute more to national development, not just their IGR, they receive more. So three things here. One is that you have to ensure the transparency, accuracy of all these funds. Okay, that's the law guarantees that. Two, you have to ensure that the sharing is based on an intangible principle that further boosts productivity, so that people who get more feel like they're going to do more, and therefore to get more, you do more. And thirdly, ultimately, all public finance problem is how do you make it count? And making it count is counting in terms of the life of people, development. In the First Republic, we had regional governments. You see that because of the nature of the political alignment with economics, they did more in terms of human development, in terms of improving roads, rural roads, everything. Of course, we talk about University of Ibadan, University of Lagos, UNN. We talk about the Southwest Television, Southeast High. We talk about Eastern Nigeria Development Corporation, Northern, Western. Everyone was developing because the logic was very simple, that people invested those to human beings and institutions, and again, they're able to create more wealth for themselves.
Going by your yardsticks, the second criterion that to get more, you need to do more. Are you suggesting then that the measure how much they give to each state by the IGR coming from the state, or do you have suggestions of some other key performance indicators that can use to say, okay, this is what will determine how much you're going to give Kano, this is what will determine how much you give Lagos, or give Plateau, give Benue? What's on your mind?
That's why some development economists will argue that a centralized system can give you more development. So, for example, the government can say, look, we are worried about poverty. So if you are doing more to leave people in poverty, means their conversion rate between resource and output is higher, okay? We'll give you more money. Now, assume the federal government has the discretion to share these funds according to this criteria, then they can now tilt it towards more. Who is investing more on human development? For example, in the north of Nigeria, we have a massive poverty crisis, human development deficit. So why can't we now raise competition? So, okay, those who get more, those who invest more in human beings, those who improve education, those who reduce out-of-school kids, get more money. The problem is that everything is written in law, constitutional text. And this constitutional text and this politics it's a disincentive to production, incentive to efficiency. It's not like any of these people cannot produce. But why do you bother to do more if you're not going to earn more by doing that? So I think there's a sense in which maybe that a conversation should happen. And that's why people talk about regionalism. People talk about maybe fiscal federalism. Let people own more about themselves, and let people suffer deficit for not doing, and let people enjoy benefit for doing better. That's how you set everyone up on a vicious climb up to productivity and welfare gains. Otherwise, we're going to go back race to the bottom, because why do we have to put in more efforts if we have not to show for it? IGR, yes, Lagos, Port Harcourt, Rivers, Ondo, Ogun State and others are doing more because they have federal presence. The oil companies, the industries are coming there. But think around, how many of them have really created some true innovative policy to expand their IGR? Not because they have a windfall, they have a historical legacy, Lagos or River State Oil Company, Lagos, and the Ogun State spillover from Lagos. Have they really created an economy that now returns to them in terms of IGR?
All right, Dr. Sam, that's something for the states to think about. Thank you so much for joining us today, Arise News analyst Dr. Sam Amadi.